over the course of the 19th century, consumer prices more than halved. The relentless growth of the state, that is a consequence of fiat money. Because when one body in a society has the ability, the power, to create money at no cost to itself, the rest of us have to work to get money. The state can just create it. The 10 largest slaving civilizations in history. Do you know who's the top?
No, I don't.
The Romans.
Ah.
None of the European colonial powers make the top 10. Who'd have thought? And you have to keep the illusion going that the money has value, and you do that through the tax system.
Do you see a world in which Bitcoin is genuinely used as a medium of exchange?
Yes, and that world already exists.
Hello and welcome to this IEA podcast. My name is Reem, Ibrahim, and I'm the head of media and Linda Whetstone Scholar here at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Today I have a very, very special guest join with me today. We have the wonderful Dominic Frisby. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure, Reem. Thank you for inviting me.
You have the fantastic, slightly odd combination of being a comedian and also a financial commentator.
Yes.
We've got so much I want to talk about today, but first of all, you've brought in your wonderful book.
I have.
That is recently published, is that right?
Last month. Yeah.
The Secret History of Gold. Tell us about why you decided to write this book.
Well, in fact, it was gold that made me end up having the weird double life that I have, which is a long time, 20 years ago or so. My dad and I were trying to raise the money for this project, and we had a little bit of money, but we needed 5 million quid. And so I was going... I started reading on the internet, and I was like, buy gold, buy gold. Everyone's saying buy gold. This is in 2005. We've got to buy gold. We've got to invest in gold. It's going to $10,000. And, the currency is going to collapse. And Dad was sort of persuaded by my arguments. And so we started investing in gold. And then there were all these clever people talking on the internet. This is in the very, very early days we were on the foothills of podcasting, and there were just all these clever people. And I was like, we've got to talk to some of these people. But if you wanted to have a consultation with them, you'd have to pay them 200 or 300 quid or 500 quid an hour, whatever their hourly rate is. I was like, I'm going to start a podcast, and then you'll get to talk to all these people. So I started this podcast in conjunction with a mining promotion company called Commodity Watch Radio. Great title. But anyway, we just started interviewing all these people and talking about gold. And one of the people I interviewed was a lady called Merrin Somerset Webb, you probably know, and she was the CEO of Money Week. And she said, we need people like you to come and write for us. And I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about. She said, it doesn't matter. Just do it. And she was just a great leader and a great delegator. And so suddenly I had a sort of weekly blog with Money Week writing about gold. And there is a saying, if you want to learn about something, write a book about it.
Because you're doing all the research.
Well, they do. But anyway, in the course of writing about gold and commodities and so on and mining, I just learned a lot about gold. And I've written 3 books before, and this was my fourth. And it was just the next obvious thing to write a book about. And it's Merrin actually called it possibly the best timed book ever, because it's just coincided with this incredible bull market in gold and the return of gold as a strategic reserve. And it's going to be a really important, it's always been an important metal because it's always been money. And then we obviously came off the gold standard, and in the eyes of some, it lost its importance. In the eyes of others, its importance never went away. But it's going to be a really important strategic metal over the next 10 years, particularly as China grows.
So let's go back to your view on money and how you actually came to this perspective in the first place. I mean, sort of at the IEA, we've spoken a lot about sort of Hayek's denationalization of money and the idea that money actually shouldn't be created by central banks, but indeed a free banking system of true free market and the creation of money is the ideal system in itself. Let's talk about how you actually came to those kind of perspectives in the first place. And of course, so I first came across you during the Bitcoin era, and that's sort of how I learned about your work in itself, I suppose, as a financial commentator in that way. So let's talk about that. How did you come to the view that fiat currencies are effectively what they are today?
Yeah. Well, the answer is by investing in gold, and it's such a political metal that once you start reading about gold, you start reading about how money gets created. Like, I could never understand why houses cost so much money. And this is 2006. How can, if somebody earns this and the whole country's earning this, why does a house cost this and it takes you 10 times your earnings to buy the house? And why can I not afford to buy the house that I grew up in, and all that kind of thing? And then once you start reading about gold and how money gets created, and, most money gets created through the issuance of debt, which is something even today after the financial crisis still not widely understood. And Chris Snowden and I have long conversations about this, but you start to realize over the course of the 19th century, consumer prices more than halved. So in other words, if you did a bit of work in 1825 and you kept your salary, the money you'd earned for doing that job in 1825, and you went to spend it in 1845, it was that quick. The money you had saved bought you double. Now that's what should happen, because we get better at making stuff. So stuff gets, as you get better, it was the Industrial Revolution then, but now we're in the digital revolution. As we get better at making stuff, the prices should fall. And so, for example, now because we outsource manufacturing to China, that's not only we got better at making stuff, China's labor costs and so on are even cheaper than ours. So prices should fall. But even, if you look at cars and you compare the price of a car in 1970 to the price of a car now, it's 40 times more expensive. Now, we've got better at making cars. Why has that happened? Even washing machines were like a luxury item in 1970. Now, everyone has a washing machine, but even washing machines are 4 times more expensive. Eggs are 12 times more expensive. Beer is like 30 times more expensive. And houses are 70 times more expensive. Stuff should get cheaper because we get better at making them. And then you realize that under a gold standard, the supply of money is reasonably constrained because governments can only issue a bit more paper than they have gold to back them. But when there's no restraint, it's literally built into the way that money is created, that the money supply will inevitably grow. And you talk to the Bank of England, they say inflation's 3 or 4%, but money supply is 7%. And when they measure inflation, they only measure the cost of certain goods. They don't measure what financial assets aren't included in inflation. Houses aren't included in inflation. And they should be, because the original definition of inflation was the inflating, the blowing up of the money supply with the consequence of higher prices. Now, inflation just means higher prices of certain consumer goods. So the meaning has been distorted over time.
And many people, especially those in the Bank of England, don't even believe the money supply has any impact whatsoever on inflation.
It's nuts. And, if you plot house prices between 1997 and 2007, this is an old stat, but it still applies. The house prices went up 3.5 times over that period. Just the average house, obviously house prices in certain areas went up by more, but the population only grew by about 10%. And if houses were completely a function of supply and demand, then for house prices to have gone up 3.5 times, you would expect the population to have gone up 3.5 times. Obviously, it's slightly more complicated because more people live in one-bed flats and that kind of thing. But even so, it's like a relatively negligible stat. But then you realise that the money supply went up by 3.5 times over the same period. And you go, well, a lot of new money that gets created, I think it's like 40%, goes into real estate.
Yeah.
And in fact, the act of creating a mortgage, in many cases, the money did not previously exist. The money gets created because you give the mortgage as the collateral, and the bank then creates the money against the collateral. And so the more money that goes into the market, it's inevitable that prices will go higher. There was a lot less debt in the housing market in the 1970s, and so house prices were a lot lower. If you actually measure house prices in gold, this is unbelievable to some, but the stat is there in the book. House prices are as cheap today as they were in the 1950s.
Wow.
And then you go, well, wages have gone up, but they haven't. Wages have gone up 20 times, and we pay them out of cash, and wages aren't paid through debt creation. And houses have gone up 70 times. House prices have gone up 3.5 times the rate of wages. And then that's why kids can't afford a house. It's that simple. It's money. And then kids can't afford a house, so they put off having a family. And so family size gets smaller. And then the government goes, oh, we haven't got enough cheap workers and we're not reproducing. We need to bring in loads of immigrants. So the nature of the population changes because of mass immigration. And people can't see the link between fiat money and mass immigration. And you're like, if you said fiat money leads to mass immigration, you'd be like, what?
Yeah,
but it's clear when you spell it out like that.
It's so interesting, I think, because you're absolutely right, partly because of the demographic changes. And I think that as we know that one of the largest increases in the size of the state, one of the biggest reasons why public spending keeps going up is because of the cost of the state pension, it's demographic changes, it's the cost of the NHS, it's healthcare. But when you look at even if you take into consideration, supply constraints like housing, for example, the housing supply has been constrained significantly despite the fact demand is, of course,
planning is another factor.
Planning is absolutely enormous. But let's talk about what is money?
Well, I'll tell you that in one second, because I just wanted to follow up. You talked about the relentless growth of the state. That is a consequence of fiat money, because when one body in a society has the ability, the power to create money at no cost to itself, the rest of us have to work to get money. The state can just create it, quantitative easing through the debt markets and so on. And when it's creating money at no cost to itself, it is inevitable that body will grow. And so, loads of, the IEA does a wonderful job and it's fighting this relentless growth of the state. But even under Thatcher and under Reagan, the state still grew. And it's a consequence of fiat money. And so if you want, again, under a gold standard, I don't actually think we'll ever see a gold standard again, by the way. So I don't want to be like one of the reviews of this book said, calling for a new gold standard. Gold standards don't work. But
as long as there's a central bank.
Well, as long as, but at least when gold was money, it puts a restraint on money supply growth. But when there's no restraint on it, so much of what the government does is funded through deficits, which is you can't do it to anything like the same extent when money is independent. So my core philosophy is that you need to separate money and state.
Would you say that would be the case with a free banking system in which the government is completely uninvolved in money creation? Well,
the government, what Hayek argued is that the government could create as much money as it likes, but private bodies could issue pounds as well. And if the private pounds are more trustworthy than the government pounds, then the market will start using the private pounds, and that will put the government pounds out of business. And so I'm a big believer in competing currencies and Hayekian stuff, because you like to think that the best currency will win. There is also the fact that bad money drives out good, but the government has a monopoly on money.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, we need to separate money and state. And thank God for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, because that has happened quite organically without government planning. And I know a lot of IEA folk won't like Bitcoin because it's a digital currency, and they'll say it's not backed by anything and you can't hold it and all this kind of thing. But actually, it's quite generational. And I'm 56, and you tend to find that the over 60s like gold and the under 50s like cryptocurrencies. And then there's this sort of halfway point with people in their 50s. But what Bitcoin has done is, because people have gone to Bitcoin, I'm going to make a load of money if I invest in cryptocurrencies, it's attracted speculators. So people go there for the money, but then they learn. And it's just proved to be the most fantastic educational tool. And so now, for example, if I wrote fiat money in an article 20 years ago, nobody would know what I was talking about. You always had to write currency created by government. Whereas now fiat is it's common parlance.
Well, what is money?
Money is a matter of functions for a medium, a measure, a standard, a store. That's the old text that was taught. But it's a medium of exchange, it's a standard of deferred payment, it's a unit of account, and it is a store of value. Money has 4 different functions. And when you talk about money, people go, well, I'm not going to go into Tesco's with a gold coin and buy coffee with a gold coin, am I? And because they only think of the medium of exchange function of money. But it's actually 4 things: standard of deferred payment, store of wealth, which is the most fiat money is a brilliant medium of exchange, not because of the fiat money itself, but because of all the fintech and the payments
It's not a great
systems.
storing of wealth because it's
Yeah,
fixed.
it's a terrible
supply.
story of wealth, but
Yeah.
it's a brilliant medium of exchange because of all the stuff that's built on top of it, all the architecture around it. I think that's one of the only reasons it doesn't collapse, actually. But it's a rotten store of wealth for all the reasons we've just said.
Yeah, if you keep £20,000 in your bank account with absolutely no interest, I mean, it's going to completely lose value in that time, and it'd be a complete waste of time.
Just since 2020, the pound has lost 40% of its purchasing power. Since 2000, it's over 90%. 40% in 6 years. It's terrible.
And it's because of the increase in supply. So let's talk. So you've explained what money is. Why does it matter that the government have a monopoly?
Well, because they kind of do and they don't.
Yep.
Because with cryptocurrencies, I mean, what the government have tried to do is, the FCA have done, is they've kind of regulated cryptocurrencies out of existence in the UK. But you can still use them to make payments. But the way the government maintains its monopoly is by demanding that you account in the currency of choice, and in this case, the pound. And so let's just say I bought £1,000 of Bitcoin 10 years ago, and it's gone up, whatever, it's gone up 100 times or something. If I then today buy something with a Bitcoin, so I literally, I buy a bottle of water off you for some Bitcoin, and I use the Bitcoin that I bought 10 years ago, I'm obliged to declare the effective gains on that crypto, as well as making the purchase of the water. I'm obliged to report to the government the effective gains I've made in that crypto and pay capital gains tax on it. Now, that is such a burden of compliance that most people don't. And so they just don't use the Bitcoin. They use the pounds. And so that's kind of one way that the government kind of keeps its monopoly, through regulation and through this, requirement to tax. I once said to Mark Littlewood, former Director General, if you can print money, why do we need taxes? And this is a question, you always see it on the internet. If you can print money, why do we need taxes? And Marx just went, well, money illusion. And you have to keep the illusion going that the money has value, and you do that through the tax system. Otherwise, you just print as much money as you like, but the currency the purchasing power would disappear overnight.
It's part of the problem that the government have the deciders, or they're the deciders that actually decide what is value and what kind of money creation we're talking about here. When it's a central bank that's creating that money, and the Bank of England is, of course, supposedly independent, although well, go on, what's your thoughts on that? Is it independent?
Supposedly.
Supposedly, indeed. It obviously has to respond to what the government are doing. Often buying up treasury bonds, I think, is a response that they tend to occur with.
When you look at what happened with the Liz Truss budget, the Kwasi-Kwarteng budget, and I'm a big never explain as conspiracy that which can be explained as incompetence.
Yeah.
But the government the Bank of England announced quantitative tightening for the first time since 2008. And it began quantitative tightening. And by that, I mean, instead of printing money to buy gilts, it started selling gilts. The very first time that began was the day before the Liz Truss budget. And that is what caused, because the Bank of England went from being a net buyer of gilts to a net seller, that is what caused the spike in gilt prices. That's what caused gilt prices to go up. And it had said about a week or two before it was going to do it on this date, because it telegraphed the sale, a bit like it did when it sold the gold. It announced to the market it was going to make this sale. But because of that, all the traders positioned themselves. But now, somebody should have told them, or that Liz Truss is doing this. We got this new budget coming, and it might cause a bit of a rocky thing. So, would you mind not selling your gilts, please, this week, because we need the gilt markets to be stable so that we can get this budget over the line. Now, there's one argument that said no. The Bank of England deliberately sold its gilts when it sold its gilt in order to undermine Liz Truss. Okay, and that's what Liz Truss will do.
Do you believe that?
I think there's a lot of truth to it.
Okay.
But there's also just as easy to go, the Bank of England was doing what it does anyway, and it announced this, and whatever the government does is not in its policy.
Yeah.
But that is what happened. And now Liz Truss will forever be tarnished as the woman who trashed the economy. But no, it was the Bank of England's gilt sales that did for it.
But obviously, gilt prices were higher under Reeves than under
yes,
Truss. I mean,
the left writes the media, doesn't the left writes the story, not the right.
That is true. But it's also the way it was communicated, I think.
Yeah, and it might just be that nobody told, because they were keeping their budget a secret because they didn't want anyone, it was a surprise. So maybe in keeping their budget a secret, somebody should have said what's going on in the gilt markets, and nobody thought to ask, just go to the Bank of England and order them not to sell. But then the Bank of England might have gone, well, it's not up to you.
No,
it's up to us because we're independent.
Decision, yeah.
And for sure, the FCA does not do what the government, because you'll have like Rishi Sunak going, Bitcoin, we're going to have our own stable, because you remember him going Bitcoin. Yeah. And like trying to cash in on the Bitcoin thing. Yeah. And George Osborne was like, got himself filmed buying Bitcoins. And we're going to make the UK a crypto hub. And it was a crypto hub until this point. But
then the rumour is that Satoshi is British.
Well, it could well be. He wrote in British English.
Yeah.
And he cited British newspapers in his white paper. But the FCA have regulated. So what they did literally went against everything the Chancellor said. And they've regulated crypto to the point where we were the world leader. The British government has got the third highest crypto holdings in the world after America and China. And as I say, Satoshi Nakamoto he cited the Times, he wrote in British English, all the early Bitcoin conferences in the UK. We had a huge first mover advantage. And because of the FCA, we have totally lost it, and now we're a laggard. But what the FCA did and all the regulatory things it pursued just went totally against everything the Chancellor did. Yeah. And said, whether it was Rishi when he was Chancellor or George Osborne. So do they not coordinate?
Yeah.
Or do they just do what they're going to do anyway, and whoever's in charge doesn't matter?
So
I think it's the latter, by the way.
Well, perhaps. So fiat currencies, they have, as you've just explained very eloquently, we've seen huge increases in the money supply. And I mean, I think, if anybody that's followed the growth in the money supply over the last decade or so, at least post-pandemic.
That's, by the way, it's the growth in the money supply that's during COVID that caused the
double-digit inflation. Yeah. Then when we saw a period of, restraint in the money supply, then inflation dropped. I mean, I think that the last 5 years at least is perfect, literally picture perfect explanation for how the growth in money supply affects inflation.
Absolutely. And what's quite interesting is if you look at inflation, rising prices, with all the quantitative easing that followed the financial crisis, the money that got created was used to buy government bonds.
Yeah.
Okay, so you saw, as a result, all that, the interest rates it enabled interest rates to fall that low. And it went from there into financial markets and then into the real estate in which they live.
Yeah.
And so you saw this huge growth in central London property prices between, say, 2011 to 2016, something like that, until they stamp dutied it out of existence. You saw runaway inflation in financial markets, stock prices and so on. But it didn't go into the real economy. Whereas during COVID, they gave the money directly to people.
Yeah.
And so people got them the newly created money rather than so that's when you saw, and also because of the supply chains were a factor as well. But suddenly people had more money, and that's when you saw inflation in consumer goods because there was more money in that particular market.
And do you think then, so thinking about gold and the gold standard, of course, we, as you said, we're never going to get back on the gold standard. But I would say
not voluntarily.
Not voluntarily, at least. I think that the gold standard is probably the second best option to a genuine free market in money creation or in currencies. But specifically with Bitcoin and with alternative, new ways of creating new types of currencies, Bitcoin is, in sort of your description of money and what it does, is a fantastic storage of value because it's got a fixed value. Do you see a world in which Bitcoin is genuinely used as a medium of exchange?
Yes, and that world already exists. I follow a guy called Crypto Whales on Twitter, and what he does is he just posts all the huge high-value transactions that take place on the Bitcoin markets. And regularly, you will see movements of money in billions of dollars. And that transaction takes place across the internet, billions of dollars, and it costs like a tenner. It costs nothing. And whoever's moved that money has asked nobody's permission. He hasn't had to phone up his bank and go, I want to move Can you imagine phoning up your bank and go, I want to move $1 million? All the KYC and all the rest of it that you would have to do. And you wouldn't be able to move it overnight. But I also sent a payment of 1 sat, which would be 1 Satoshi, which is 1/8 millionth of a Bitcoin. And that would have a value of about 1/15th of 1p. Okay. And I did it, and I wanted to send it to the other side of the world to prove that I could do it. So I sent it to somebody in Australia. So I sent a payment of 1/15th of 1p to Australia, and it cost me nothing. So the point being here is micropayments, by the way, create all sorts of economic possibilities.
Yes, absolutely.
And there's whole new markets that can open up, particularly with the internet of things. And imagine if you got, instead of getting a like for your wonderful post that you put on Twitter, if you've got a payment of 1/15th of 1p, and then Elon Musk retweets you and you get 50 million views, which is what happened with my We're All Far Right Now song. And if I'd sold 50 million singles, I'd never need to work again. But even if I'd received 1/15th of 1p in tips, I would have done great from it. But all I got was a lot of likes and a lot of dopamine. But that's an example. Online tipping is one example of where micropayments, and to send out 1/15th of 1p, it's inconsequential to the person who's sending it out. It's nothing. So, and the other reason that, so after gigs, I sell my books and I sell my We're All Far Right Now mugs after gigs. And people come up to me and they go, can I pay you in cash? Can I pay you in fiat using your phone or your credit card? The Zap's my phone, it sends the money. And can I pay you in Bitcoin, Lightning Network? And the quickest way to enact the payment is by Lightning. It beats even a credit card going like that.
Really?
It's quicker. And so the idea that, but what people don't realize is it wasn't designed to do that. It was designed to be money for the internet. And if you think, how big can the pound scale? The pound is limited by our national borders. It's never going to be the currency of the world. The euro scales slightly bigger because the euro is a bigger market. The US dollar is the most scalable of any fiat currency because it's the global reserve currency and it has America's economy backing it, America's military backing it, all that stuff. And it's the currency that's used, for example, for commodities, international commodities trading and international settlements. But it's flawed because you have to get somebody's permission. And so when Russia invaded Ukraine, the weaponization of money is the first thing that happens in war, almost. And NATO froze all Russian US dollar assets, rightly or wrongly. Might have been the right thing to do. It might have been, but it was a sort of.
But the government can control.
But it can control it.
Your assets.
But you do not need somebody's permission. Now, if you're just, Johnny come farmer in the Sudan, let's say, he's probably not called Johnny, but you take my point.
Abdul.
Whatever his name is. I don't think Abdul, is this, Abdul sound, anyway, would it be Abdul? It's a
Muslim name.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
so Sudan's, okay, whatever his name is. Anyway, Abdul the farmer, Mohammed the farmer in Sudan. And, you're in rural Sudan, you can't get access to basic financial services. You can't get a bank account. It's impossible. And I think there's still 2 to 3 billion people in the world unbanked. But everyone now has a mobile phone.
Yeah.
And everyone can use that, just get a Bitcoin wallet and send and receive Bitcoin on their mobile phone. Now, actually, Mohammed the farmer is not a good example. We're going to go for somebody in Gaza. Okay. Now, this person in Gaza is apolitical. They can see that Israel has some case to it argument, but they can also see that there's a flawed side to the Israel argument. They can see that Hamas has too much power, that some of the things that are going on that Hamas does are evil, bad and wrong. And they can also see that Palestine has legitimate argument. Okay, they can see both sides of it. They haven't got involved in that particular sectarian thing. They are apolitical. They just happen to have lost the lottery of life and be living in the middle of Gaza. And they're a graphic designer. Okay, they got nothing to do with war. They got nothing to do with it, and they just want to earn a living as a graphic designer. Now, if you want to send money to Palestine, and let's say they've got a cousin in wherever, in London, if somebody wants to send that person money, it's a nightmare because they have to get the money through the banking system. A lot of banks will just not allow you to send money to anyone in Gaza. Even though that person might desperately need the money. Then when it gets to Gaza, if you can get it through, you have to go through all sorts of, you have to go to the bank. What's this money for? Who's sending it to you? Why is it? No. You can't have it.
Yeah.
You've got to go through all of that.
Fill in 20 pages of
paperwork, people snipping commissions off the sides. Hamas take a lot of the money that gets sent to Gaza. A lot of the humanitarian aid programs send money to Gaza, try and send money charities, and it just gets blocked and stopped. It's a nightmare. And so how does that person in Gaza get money? Get a mobile phone, I can zap them some money and they'll have money in 10 seconds. And this has happened. And everyone in Gaza has a mobile phone. It's an amazing thing. Everything else has fallen apart, but they've all got mobile phones. You look at the guys on the dinghy crossing the channel. They've got nothing, but they've all got a mobile phone.
Yeah.
And or a smartphone, I should say. And so it bypasses all of that. And so it has a very real humanitarian use case of being, that's the value of permissionless currency. The problem with permissionless money is that it also gets used for illegal things. But do you know what? The US dollar gets used for illegal things. Cash gets used for illegal things. Nobody's saying, well, they are saying ban cash. This argument now is because drug dealers use cash, so go ban cash. Well, drug dealers use the US dollar. But we're not banning the US dollar. Yeah. But that's what that's the argument that Bitcoin has to win. But you can see there's a very real case. Now, your original question was, can Bitcoin be used
as a medium of exchange?
Can it be the global medium of exchange? It was designed to replicate cash. Okay. And what it is it's digital cash. It's cash for the internet. And it already has become the default cash system of the internet. Now, if you think the internet is a borderless medium, obviously there's .com and .co.uk and .de and all that, but it's still pretty much borderless. And national currencies are limited by borders. There's no limit on Bitcoin. So the scalability of Bitcoin is just huge. And this is what people just write it off. And there's a website called Bitcoin Graveyards. And I just say to you, you write it off at your peril because you'll just end up on Bitcoin graveyards. The potential is so enormous.
But supply is fixed.
Supply is fixed, but it's infinitely divisible.
So what do you think that means in terms of so if it's infinitely divisible, it means you could have one.
Well, it's not divisible to 8 decimal places.
Okay, right. So what does that mean for the expansion of Bitcoin? If it is the case, for example, that every single person, all 8 billion people across the entire world, are now using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, what does that mean in practice in terms of the value of that money? Because does that mean that
it go up a lot?
Right. So does that mean that we never experience? I don't know. We never experience inflation in the same way that we would with.
No, it's a deflationary system of money. That's built in. It was designed to be a system of money that buys you more over time. And because of the fact that he put a finite supply on it, that is like one of the core principles. And it was designed to make people think differently about money and realize that, when we had gold, we had a deflationary system of money. I said that over the course of the 19th century, consumer prices more than halved. It just doesn't happen now. And so our minds are think stuff only goes. But when you have a deflationary system of money whose money buys you more over time, it encourages saving. It encourages investment. It gets rid of short-termism. And it has all these consequences. It totally changes the psychology of society. And that's why, the mantra is fix money, fix the world. And everyone gets involved in all these arguments about we've got to do this to save the country. We've got to do that. If you fix the money system, everything else will follow.
And what does this mean in terms of, what Hayek described in the denationalization of money, which is that you can have competing currencies? Can you tell me a little bit about how you came to that worldview in terms of the idea that Bitcoin is perhaps, the most valuable in that respect because of the way that it's been coded and the way that it's completely decentralized? Can you explain what that looks like in terms of, Hayek's view on what money could look like?
Sure. Well, within the cryptocurrency world, I think something like, I wouldn't even care to put a number on it, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of different cryptocurrencies have been invented. Bitcoin was the first, so it had a massive first mover advantage, and it's got the network that none of the others have.
But you've got Dogecoin, you've got
Dogecoin, meme coins, scam coin.
I bought a Kim Kardashian NFT.
Did you? There you go.
Probably worth nothing now.
It probably is, but it gave you some pleasure.
It did. It gave me 10 seconds of pleasure, and that was worth it.
Yeah. There was even a coin invented called Ponzi coin. And the guy in the white paper, he described exactly how the Ponzi system was going to work. But people bought it and they invested it, and then they complained when they lost money.
That's brilliant. It's literally on the name, mate.
Ponzi coin. And there's one, I think the top performing cryptocurrency last year was one called Fart coin. And it was a joke.
That's brilliant.
But this is what happened with meme coins, and people get, some people make a lot of money out of them, other people get wrecked, and I don't think it's particularly healthy, but it's funny. And the lols. But in any case,
But why is Bitcoin special?
Well, it has the first mover advantage, and it's the purist's choice, and it's got the most computer power behind it. But it still accounts for 50, 60%, probably 70% now of the market cap of cryptocurrencies more generally. And it's the first one, it's the best one.
Yeah.
And so, but you have a situation of Hayekian competing currencies within the crypto world. And it is happening right in front of our eyes. And you have stable coins as well, US dollar-backed coins or gold-backed coins. And they all, different coins do different things, and different coins have amazing technologies latched onto the back of them. But there is a world of competing currencies there. And at the moment, Bitcoin is winning that battle, and it will win. Because it's as I say, it's got the most computer power behind it. But so you're seeing Hayekian denationalization of money
in the real world,
in the digital world.
In the digital world, indeed. Yeah. So crypto is, in some ways, a sort of real life application of Hayek's view on denationalization of money. I don't think Hayek could have ever foreseen I suppose it's probably the knowledge problem. Nobody can ever really foresee what kind of technological advancements could occur. But it's absolutely insane how it's exploded.
It is, but actually Hayek did see it. Because there are like little clips of Hayek talking about what's going to happen. And Milton Friedman saw it as well. He said the only thing the internet is missing is digital money. Right. Internet money, I think he called it. But there's a 1 minute clip of Hayek as an old man talking about this decentralized money thing. And it's literally like, it's a total description of Bitcoin before it happened. So it's become a sort of, amongst Bitcoiners, it's one of the most memed videos.
That's brilliant. Wow. Okay. So talk to me about gold then. So you wrote this book, and when did you publish it?
It came out at the beginning of September.
Beginning of September.
Yeah, it's a very nice Christmas present.
It does make for a very good Christmas present. Well, first of all, where can we buy it?
Amazon, Waterstones, any other bookshops.
Fantastic. And
or one of my gigs, and I'll sign it for you.
Oh, that's good. We all want a signed copy from you.
We want a signed copy.
So what do you actually cover in the book?
Well, I start at the dawn of time, and I go through to the future, all in about 60,000 words. I say this a lot on podcasts, so sorry if you've heard me say this, but you can't destroy gold. You can mixing it with certain acids or mercury, but or nuclear explosions, but in like real common occurrences that happen, you just can't destroy gold. It's as Spandau Ballet sang, it's indestructible. You can like beat it into a leaf that's 1 atom thick. You can stretch an ounce of gold into a wire miles and miles long. It's incredibly malleable, but you can't destroy it. And gold was created when stars collided in outer space billions of years ago. And these stars collided in the nuclear explosions that followed. Dust heavy metals and gold and dust was sent out into space. And then over time, the dust compresses, gravitational pressure and asteroids colliding, and it compresses. That's how we got the planets. That's the common theory. Another explanation is divine creators.
God.
But yeah, but either way, the gold was there.
Okay.
First. And so that means that, so I wear this little gold necklace around my neck, and I see you got your little gold earrings on, and you've got your ring, your gold engagement where you get that in the camera. But that means that this bit of gold here is older than the Earth. And it's not only older than the Earth, it's older than the solar system. So one of the lines I use in the book that I'm quite proud of is to touch gold is the closest you will ever come to touching eternity.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's quite a profound thought when you think about it, or is it? But whatever. But now, if you'd put eternity into AI, it'll give you something all cloudy and celestial. It won't give you an inert metal, lifeless. But this little bit of gold, it's seen everything. It's seen nuclear explosions. It's been, Stone Age man, Spanish conquistadors, concentration camp. It's just seen that you just don't know. And the whole time it's just been totally lifeless and inert. And it's all there. So all the gold that's ever been mined still exists. It's quite a thought.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing is the rate of gold mining is exactly the same as population growth. So there's pretty much as much gold per capita now. Natural money. It's as though it's been designed by God.
Maybe God decided gold to be money.
The gold and silver are mine, saith the Lord.
Fantastic.
That's the quote from the Bible.
I didn't know that. Yeah. As a Muslim, I clearly have.
Oh, sorry.
My Bible knowledge is not too great. So this is fascinating. A lot of this is stuff I have absolutely no idea about.
Yeah. So that's the first chapter is all about that, and then I talk about China's gold and the future of gold, and gold as a strategic metal. There's a strong argument that gold, gold was money for thousands of years, but the horse was transport for thousands of years, and then we invented the car. So why do we need? And the horse just became a luxury. You could say the same about gold. It's not digital. Everything's digital now. Gold has no future. It's an analog asset in a digital world. There's a very strong argument for that. And so all gold is ever going to be in the future is jewelry and a few cranky people who think the world's going to end storing it as bullion.
It's a you in 20 years.
Me and a few preppers in Texas or somewhere. But but what we've seen this year, in fact, it began with the confiscation of Russian US dollar assets that we talked about, is the sudden increase in accumulation by central banks of gold. So, like at the end of World War II, say, gold was like 90% of central bank holdings. I'm making that figure up, but it was high. And then the US dollar gradually replaced it. And by 2015, gold was 10% of central bank holdings. Central banks had more euros, they had more US treasuries, they had more US dollars. They probably even had not quite more pounds, but even more pounds. But over the next 10 years, gold went from 10% to 20% of central bank holdings. And just because of the rise in the gold price, that's sort of distorted the numbers a bit. They're now just shy of 30% of central bank holdings. They've overtaken the euro. They've overtaken US treasuries. Very significant. Central banks are net sellers of US debt. It's a big problem that the US has got on its hands. It's got a solution. We don't panic. But the dollar is now come below 50%. It's at 49% of central bank holdings. And gold's at 30%. So you're seeing, even though gold isn't official money, as a reserve asset, and then you go, which are the central banks that are buying it? China, Russia, until the Ukraine war was buying lots.
They couldn't afford it.
Maybe they can. They mine a lot, and they probably keep a lot of what they mine. But they had a very pro-gold Austrian economist, central banker at one point, who was just like, "We've got to buy more gold. We've got to buy more gold."
Buy more gold. Yeah. That's a very good Russian accent.
Not really, but anyway. But it's mainly Poland's been buying a lot as well.
Yes,
and
I did think that.
But it's also the other main buyers are all countries along the Silk Road. in the Shanghai, what's called the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's called de-dollarization. They're just gradually getting rid of their US dollars, because if you're reliant on the US, you're in their hands. Whereas gold is the money in and of itself. You're not in anyone else's hands. It's permissionless. Yes, it's like Bitcoin. It's permissionless, which is the key thing. And so, China's still got $3 trillion, but its treasury holdings have been falling since 2014. And I've done all the stats in the book, so you can read them and argue with me if you disagree. But my argument is that China has understated its gold. China says it has about 2,300 tons. America nominally has 8,000 tons, but it hasn't been audited since the 1950s, which has got the conspiracy theorists going. But China nominally has a bit more than 25, 30% of what America has nominally. But if you look at gold flows to China, which are quite easy to calculate, and you look at Chinese mining, you can see that the Chinese government has at least 3 times as much gold, and possibly as much as 10 times as much gold as it says it does. So it's dramatically understated its gold reserves.
But in terms of gold being, money, right, as sort of the asset holder, yes, it's very good at holding value. It holds an incredible amount of value. It's not very easily divisible, though.
No. Well, no, you make a very good point. And that's why silver and copper, and that's why we sort of use metal as money, because silver would be for the, you'd use your gold coin, like, a gold coin the size of a 2p. I should have bought one to show you, but I haven't. But so what I have got, I've got a silver dollar in my pocket, actually. So that's a silver dollar from 1881. You can touch it if you like. That's real money.
To the camera. That's really cool.
And a dollar. Yes, it's heavy. It's real money. It feels like money, and I just carry it as a good luck thing. But that was a day's wage for a working man. It was a silver dollar. But it would, to buy get a gold coin, this same amount of gold, take probably 90 of these silver coins to get the gold coin. It used to be 15 to 1, but now the ratio is 90 to 1. So silver. So there's a lot of wealth in a gold coin. But, a tiny gold coin, say the size of a 2p, would be 700 quid today, at the size of a 2p. So you might use it to buy a nice suit or a racehorse or whatever you would use it for. But for everyday transactions, it's got minimal use. So gold never really was a medium of exchange on a day-to-day. You wouldn't buy a pint of milk with a gold coin. No. But you would use copper or a little bit of silver to buy day-to-day stuff. So metal is divisible, even though gold isn't. And then we started using paper. But people ask why the gold standards. The first, in the 19th century, when we actually handled gold coins on a day-to-day basis, gold coins were part of the money supply. Guineas in the 80s. She'd been designing the posters for this venue for 20 years. And she went, if you have that bloke in this venue, I will never, I'm leaving. And, issued an ultimatum. The guy who ran the venue didn't want to lose his employee of 20 years. He just didn't want to rock the boat. His loyalty has to be with his employees. Yeah. And so I lost a gig. That is, that's an actual, that's a cancellation event. But most of the time, I don't even get to the point of being cancelled because I can't even get through the, you'd think if a guy can sell a certain amount of tickets and you have a venue that has a similar amount of seats, you would want that guy in your venue because you can sell tickets and that's your business. Not if it's run by the account. Of course you have.
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to speak at a school about 2 months ago, and I actually flew back from the US just so I could speak at the school, and then I got told, sorry, the powers that be have now decided that we're about to cancel the event.
And I'm sorry, but it's all if fiat money fixes this, gold and Bitcoin fix this, because these institutions would not be state-run and they wouldn't have the state money backing them up. They would be private, and then they wouldn't have the power. They'd have to operate by the same rules as the rest of us, and they wouldn't have the ability to control the narrative.
And perhaps a particular school wouldn't want somebody like me to speak, but that's fine, right? At least the parents and the teachers and the students would be able to make these choices. But in the current system,
I can't see Ibrahim getting a speaking tour of Britain's state schools.
No, God, no. But this was a state school up north, and it was one teacher that loved the IEA and loved what we did and wanted me to come and speak. And unfortunately, that teacher actually ended up resigning as a result of.
Oh no!
Yeah, he went. I'm not working here anymore.
But there are teachers come up to me and go, I bought your book on taxation, for example, and I make all my kids read it, and it's absolutely brilliant. But
there are some good ones.
Of course there are. But broadly speaking, it is controlled by a certain ideology, and it is the ideology that is paying them.
Yeah. No, it is. It's government money, fundamentally.
And so and it applies across the education system, across the media.
Yeah. Tell us about Govern Us Harder before we finish.
So government...
I think that might be my favourite one of your
A lot
songs.
of people think it's my best one.
Yeah, I think it is.
And it goes really well live, I have to say, because all the musicians have a solo. And I've got really good musicians in the band. And it's like... And my bassist, you had 8 bars each on the solo because we've got to get them on the comedy, and then my bassist just goes on for about 30 bars to stop. But I can't claim to have invented the expression "govern me harder." It was an expression that I heard that came about during COVID, and I just thought it was such a funny expression. Whoever invented it, "govern me harder," and so I've wrote this kind of love song, if you like. Or it's in the style of "Je t'aime" by Serge Gainsbourg.
You know what? I've got zero musical ability because you've mentioned all of these songs and the tunes, and I'm like, oh wow, I thought it was an original. You know, I thought it was.
Well, most of it is original, but there's like the middle eight is when it goes. It's time for a bit of regulation.
Oh, that's fantastic! How does I not get?
Yeah, I want you to. What's the line? I want you to legislate the hell out of me. And all that, and that's all to the music of "Je t'aime," which is
brilliant.
Yeah. It's a reference, but the lyric is so the opening lyric is "Govern me harder, tell me what to do, give me your welfare, a council tax review."
It's so good.
It's all like super sexy and funny. Yeah.
Well, what a brilliant pre-budget song. I mean, I hope that Rachel Reeves has heard it, and if she hasn't, then my God, she has. Well, we just email it to her ASAP, don't we?
But she's definitely heard maybe Rachel Reeves' FOS.
Yeah, probably. You would listen to it if you've had a song about it.
I think so, and they don't like it. Nicola Sturgeon blocked me.
Did she?
Mm.
Oh.
I think she's blocked a few people. What was the song? I did a song about it. I can't even remember what it is now. But
I can visualize the music video.
Maybe Nicola Sturgeon's Burglar Bill, a socialist of the old school with her hands in a till, and then it was something about her being locked up, and but because she'd been calling for trans people to be in women's prisons.
Yes, well, that's ultimately brought her down.
Yeah, well, it was calling for her. When she gets locked up because there was some financial irregularities as well, and that was satirizing that, and that she was going to get locked up, and that she would end up being locked up with some bird with a penis, and that was the big laugh in the song, and that resulted in hundreds of thousands of views and a blocking by Nicola Sturgeon.
Brilliant. Oh, I've got to say, I mean, we could literally sit here and talk for absolutely hours. I think you are I think you are the best political satirist of our time. But the fact that you are one of the best and also extremely sound is something that it means I always feel as though it's a huge pleasure to be.
Well, you're very kind, Reem. Thank you very much.
So thank you for having me. And thank you very much for joining us. And thank you to all of you for watching and listening. How can we find out about you?
Well, if you want to buy the book, there it is, The Secret History of Gold. And I have 2 newsletters, one for my financial stuff, which is called theflyingfrisbee.com, and you should all subscribe. I've just put a very good video on there, actually, which I'm quite proud of. The top 10, the 10 largest slaving civilizations in history. That's the next argument I want to get into.
Oh, brilliant.
Do you know who's top?
No, I don't.
The Romans.
Ah.
And none of the European colonial powers make the top 10. Who'd have thought? And so that's theflyingfrisbee.com. And if you're interested in my comedy stuff, that's at frisbees.news. And hopefully they will link.
Yes, we'll pop those links in the YouTube description. Thank you, Dominic, and thank you to all of you for watching and listening. And if you want to learn more about the IEA's work, then do become a subscriber at insider.iea.org.uk.
Eternity. People want gold, and it looks good, it looks beautiful, and it makes you look better, and it makes you feel good. And there's a line, you could take a time machine to any culture, anywhere in the world, at any point in history, and they would understand that gold has value. You can't say that about any other. It's properly universal money. You can't say that about Bitcoin. You can't say that about paper fat or digital pounds and dollars. You can't say that about any other money. And so it's timeless in that respect. And it does have this link to the eternal. And particularly with the clusterfuck of things that are going on in the UK at the moment. And the pound has actually held up reasonably well, even though the rest of the economy is, steadily falling apart. But eventually the pound will go. It always does. And, there's a fiscal crisis coming. It's been one of the most obvious fiscal crises. And the only reason it hasn't happened yet is that Rachel Reeves, because of what happened to Liz Truss, she's given more priority to the bond market than she has to taxpayers and so on. But that won't stay that way forever. And, eventually and you're going to be very glad you own gold. And so I just recommend everyone to own a little bit. You'll be grateful. I thought this was an old Wall Street wisdom, but I actually Googled the expression and it turned out the person who coined it was me.
Great.
So, but it's put 5% of your net worth in gold and hope it doesn't go up. And that's not a bad.
That's a very good way of thinking about it. If only financial sort of education was much more deregulated and meant that you could actually advertise that more widely.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the FCA will come knocking on your door. So I think this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation, and thinking about money as a whole. And I mean, I suppose this sort of comes down to, we spoke about the essay earlier, but the denationalisation of money, the idea that, we can have competing currencies. I think even for most people, it's just completely incomprehensible that in many places of the world, I mean, we didn't even talk about it, but in places like Argentina, where, the peso had completely lost its value and people were already using different currencies. It happens organically. People see value. And I'm very excited to get my hands on one of these books. And I'm sure many of our listeners should definitely have a look and go on Waterstones, did you say? Or
Waterstones, Amazon,
wherever it is. So before we finish up, I want to talk about you.
Okay, sure. My favourite subject.
Because I have become absolutely fascinated by the way that you communicate. The very ideas that we talk about on a daily basis at the IEA. The idea that the government continuously want to govern us. And your latest song, I think, is just brilliant, which we have to link in the description here.
Okay. Govern me harder. It might not be to all of your viewers' taste.
No, but I think that for many of our younger audiences, they will absolutely love it. And I think it's one of those, I think that all of your songs really do communicate those ideas, but in such a fun way. How did you get into comedy?
I wrote a song. I've never really loved stand-up that much, but I've always loved comic songs. Ever since I was a little boy, we'd be in Gilbert and Sullivan shows at school. And Noel Coward and P.G. Wodehouse I like. He's not such a good lyricist, P.G. Wodehouse, but he's obviously a brilliant writer. And I've just always loved comic songs. And I wrote a comic song when I left drama school called The Upper Class Rapper, which was it was in 1997 I first did it. And I tried to get it released as a novelty Christmas single. And in those days, there would always be a funny song that came out in Christmas. And it would often get in the charts and everyone would be singing the song. So I wrote this song, and I was friends of mine at university had become a music agent. So I phoned him up and I said, can we do this as a Christmas novelty single? And he said, go and do it at my brother's club, which was a club called Up the Creek in Greenwich, notorious club. And his brother was a chap called Malcolm Hardy, who was he's no longer with us, very sadly, but he was a notorious bon viveur. He stole Freddie Mercury's birthday cake one time. They did all sorts of hilarious pranks, and died too young, but probably anyway, doesn't matter. They used to have a thing on Sunday evenings where you went and did an open spot, and if the open spot went well, they gave you a paid booking. And I went and did an open spot, and everyone else died. And I just I went on and said, hello, I'm the rapper. And everyone laughed, and they gave me a gig. And suddenly I had paid work, and you were paid in cash, and people bought you drinks, and girls came up and flirted with you. And I was like, this is great. And so that's how I became a comedian. And I was the upper class rapper for many years.
That's fantastic.
And then, so I've always loved comic songs, and, my comedy career's, gone up and down like everyone's, but my first love has never been stand-up. It's always been comic songs. And then I was like, I've got to learn to play an instrument so that I can do my comic songs on stage without having to rely on a backing track. Because the problem with a backing track is you're beholden to the music, and sometimes the gaps between the laughs are too big, or sometimes, you need to be able to vary your timing.
You need to be able to respond to the audience, I suppose, and how they're responding to your comedy.
Exactly, for which you need to be able to play an instrument. So I started learning ukulele with this in mind. And this was in the lead up to Brexit. And I would start playing the ukulele, and I said, I got this idea for a song called the Jeremy Corbyn Blues. And it was this idea that this guy had woken up in the morning and accidentally found himself as the leader of the Labour Party, and everything he did just ended up going tits up and big. Do you remember what a shambles Jeremy Corbyn was at the beginning of the thing? And so my ukulele teacher just started really laughing at this and just started adding bits. And suddenly we had this song, the Jeremy Corbyn Blues, which I never actually did. And then I said to him, I've got this other idea for a song which is called Keyboard Warrior, which never really went anywhere. And then I said, I've got this other idea for a song. It's called I'm Secretly in Love with Nigel Farage. And what it is, it's about this guy, and he just watches videos late at night on YouTube. And my ukulele teacher's terribly, he's got a little moustache and wears a tie and a tweed jacket, terribly formal gentleman. And we just started, and he just literally wrote this song like that. It was only 2 chords, which should be very easy to play. And it was very amusing. And proper old, gentleman.
I say that's not what I thought a ukulele teacher. No. I thought a ukulele teacher would be proper little hippie. No.
But he is a genius of a musician.
That's fantastic.
I can't say his name. He won't let me say his name.
Wow.
But he's a genius of a musician who fell into difficult times in the mid-noughties and so started teaching, and then decided he quite liked it. Anyway, so then I said, I've got this other idea for a song, and it's about, and we're in 2017 now, or 2018, when they're trying to stop Brexit. You remember all the stuff they were trying to do to stop Brexit. And I said, I've got this idea, and they did this, and then the English went, nah, fuck off. And then the English went, nah, fuck off. And he said, oh, that would lend itself very well to Widdicombe Fair, which is an old English folk song.
Yes. Oh, is that where the tune comes from?
The second part. The first part is Martin. I didn't say that. Didn't say his name. And but the second part is an old English folk song, and that's one of the reasons why I did so well, because it's such an old English song, and everyone sort of vaguely knows the folk songs in their head, even if they don't know that they know them. And but the fact that it was an old English folk song, and Brexit was about Britain, England, whatever, the whole thing lent itself. And I did it. And I remember it was a Tuesday afternoon. I had we composed it. And at that time, Comedy Unleashed had a gig in Reading that I was doing on the Wednesday.
Right.
I was like, I'll go and try this. And I tried it at the gig, and it just went, boom. It just laughed. And people coming up to me, I was like, that song, it made me feel really proud. It made me feel really, you've got to do that song. So I phoned up Noah, and I said, do you know any studios where we can record this? And he said, yes, as a matter of fact, my friend Wayne's got a studio. And so we went, I said, what does he charge? I'll call you back. £20 an hour. I was like, okay, £20 an hour.
Not bad.
So we went to Wayne's studio, which turns out was his front room. £20 an hour. Well, no, it's fine, because you're paying for what a brilliant musician and audio engineer is. And we recorded it, and Noah brought all these different instruments, all these mandolins and old English instruments, because he's got an interest in all this song. So if you actually listen to the song and you're a musician and you know about music, people, I think, again, one of the reasons the song did so well is because there's a lot of really good musicianship behind the comedy. There's also some really good musicianship. Anyway, we recorded the song, and then, so this is the Thursday, and then on the Friday, I said to my friend Alex, who also in those days, he's revealed his real name now, but in those days he would do everything under a pseudonym, because everyone was so scared of being cancelled.
Yeah.
People think cancel culture only started in the 20s. It goes back a long time. And, but so me and Alex, and we met at 3:00 in Parliament Square, and I can't remember if it was me or him, but one of us was an hour late. And Alex brought this other guy along, and the other guy was going, yeah, it's so funny, that song. It's just so funny. You have to call it 17 million F-offs. You can't call it, because I wanted to call it the Brexit song or something. No. You have to call it 17 million F-offs. And so we literally made the video that on the Friday, and I think we got it up on the internet on the Saturday or the Sunday or something, and it just went boom, straight away, a mass viral thing. So I dabbled in comic songs a lot if you trawl through my old videos, there's lots of silly old raps, and I did a song called Debt Bomb, all about the financial crisis. But that was the first time that I was doing it on stage, and then the songs really went.
The rest is history. Yeah. So tell me about your most recent song, because that was, I mean, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Where you're really talking about. Well, I mean, I love it because we share sort of similar ideological perspectives, and so I think that any of us that sort of understand exactly the kind of ideas that you're coming from and what you actually believe fundamentally. And we're all just so upset about the state of the country.
Yeah.
But to be able to laugh and sort of, it's therapy.
Yeah, I like it. And people, a lot of the time, somebody's talking shit on the internet, and they're just, the reply they get is just my song.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And so I wrote that Brexit song in 2018. 2017, I can't remember, but it was like 80. When did we actually leave? 2020 we left, didn't we?
Yeah, it was way after.
It was 2018, 2019 it came out. So 2 or 3 years after the vote. My friends from school, who were all deluded Remainers, blame me for Brexit. And I was like, this song did not even exist when the people voted. No, you caused them all to vote with your stupid song. I literally did not.
Freedom was in 2016, honey. What are you talking about? That's mental.
I know. But
well, there are many people. Yeah. I mean, there are people like I'm going to say there's a guy called Femi who was really big around 2016.
Femi
he said, well, indeed, he said to me, sort of got into this massive row because I said, no. Before 2016, the IEA had, different perspectives on Brexit. There was some that Remainers and some that Brexiteers.
Christian was a agreement.
And so Remain still, he's still basically thinks that.
Right.
He basically says, if we can be freer in Europe, let's fight for freedom in Europe. And we've got an entire branch, Epicenter, which looks at a branch of European think tanks focused in Brussels.
I still can't believe that Owen Jones took the side of Remain.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a proper left-wing libertarian lever.
Exactly. I would expect somebody like Zach Polanski to be pro-Brexit as well, because
that left-wing Brexit voice just went totally unarticulated.
It did. But people like Femi genuinely didn't want the democratic vote to be respected. So he said, after 2016, the IEA, you guys all wrote about how we could implement a free market Brexit. And I said, well, yeah, that was after the vote. He said, see, you respected the vote. I said, yes, we respect the democracy. And he was, it's that's some sort of a gotcha. Yeah. Is that a gotcha that we respect democracy? I don't know. But I mean, people really went Lulu around.
Yeah.
Around that time.
People are still shouting at me now.
Really?
About it.
And
it's like, I didn't, I just wrote a comic song about it. I mean, I did write articles in Money Week arguing for it, but only, a few thousand people read them. It wasn't like, I didn't cause. I mean, I still think it was the right thing to do. But,
totally.
And I like writing comic songs, and I'm a satirist, I guess, and I mean, and it's really not hard to write funny observations about the world in which we live because everyone's gone dotty. And
there's plenty of content for you
there's no shortage, and I carry on producing it. The most recent one I've done, because there's actually a lag, because I don't always do this, but I try and write the song and perform it several times live first before I record it, because you need to know where the laughs are and the timing and rewrite bits. It's very rare that I'll go straight to recording, because although I do it sometimes. But so when you said, tell me about your latest song, that's my most latest song.
The latest one that's public.
Yeah. Well, it's public. If you come to my shows, I do them.
Right, okay.
But my 2 latest songs are about the origin. So I heard someone go, it's about the origins of the expression toe rag.
Great.
So, and because I heard an old lady going about Keir Starmer, I wouldn't vote for that filthy toe rag. And I was like, what's a toe rag? Is it a thing you put around your toes? Remember the toy? So I then Googled it.
I never really thought that.
And the result, a toe rag is like disgusting. What if you knew what I'm not going to say it on the thing, but I Googled it, and the result is a song called The Toe Rag, which, funnily enough, we're going to a studio on Wednesday to record it. But I've done it a few times live, because it's a sea shanty. It's a nautical thing. and it's quite scatological, the song, which is not necessarily a good thing.
Well, tell us about Governor's Harder.
Well, I'll tell you about Governor.
Yeah, go on.
So that's the toe rag. So that video's
coming, yeah.
that's coming, and the other one I've done.
Well, subscribe to Dominic Frisby to watch the video.
Frisbys.news if you want to get the songs ahead of anyone else. And the other one we've done, which is going to get me in massive trouble, is a version of English Country Garden, which is an old English folk song. I'm sure you know it.
Yeah.
In an English country garden. But it's all about all the flowers you find in an English country garden. But we've changed it to all the nationalities you find in an English country garden.
Brilliant. That's right.
And literally, I'm just singing about all the nationalities, and it just winds people up in a good way.
Well, because I'm presuming, obviously, I've not seen it. There's no comment.
I don't say it's good or bad. I just say that.
So if you're upset by that, then you're
exactly. You're the one who's got the problem, not me. You're inferring thing. So that's coming, but I don't know if I've got the guts to put that one on into that. Might be the end of me. So, but govern me hard.
List of countries.
You mustn't exactly, but you can't attack the logic of the cancellers with logic or
the culture still really exists.
Oh my God. Why do you think I'm not? In any other age, I think I'm probably the leading musical satirist of my times. And I've performed to Boris Johnson, I've performed to Nigel Farage many times, I've performed to Liz Truss many times. Liz Truss comes to my shows when the security guards sit at the back and they all roar with laughter and stuff. And in another life, I would be a fixture on Radio 4. Because it has a great tradition of musical satire. Radio 4 would not have me in a month of Sundays. And I can't say I blame them, but it's because it's owned by a particular worldview. And so that's a form of it's not giving someone a platform. Mm. So nobody in the entertainment establishment wants to give me a platform. And the entertainment establishment is struggling anyway, like TV.
Yeah,
TV is struggling.
But to be fair, I mean, that's not the same as cancel culture, because I would say, nobody has the right to a platform. And in many ways, you've created...
No, you're absolutely right. Nobody has a right. And I have created my own platform. But yes, so for example, I had a load of gigs booked in, and the woman that designed the posters at one of the venues in Yorkshire that I was supposed to perform at goes... And she'd been designing the posters for this venue for 20 years. And she went, if you have that bloke in this venue, I will never... I'm leaving. And, issued an ultimatum. The guy who ran the venue didn't want to lose his employee of 20 years. He just didn't want to rock the boat. His loyalty has to be with his employees.
Yeah.
And so I lost a gig. That is, that's an actual, that's a cancellation event. But most of the time, I don't even get to the point of being cancelled because I can't even get through the... You'd think if a guy can sell a certain amount of tickets and you have a venue that has a similar amount of seats, you would want that guy in your venue because you can sell tickets and that's your business. Not if it's run by the council. Of course you had.
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to speak at a school about 2 months ago, and I actually flew back from the US just so I could speak at the school, and then I got told, sorry, the powers that be have now decided that we're about to cancel the event.
And I'm sorry, but it's all if fiat money fixes this, gold and Bitcoin fixes, because these institutions would not be state-run and they wouldn't have the state money backing them up. They would be private, and then they wouldn't have the power. They'd have to operate by the same rules as the rest of us, and they wouldn't have the ability to control the narrative.
And perhaps a particular school wouldn't want somebody like me to speak, but that's fine, right? At least the parents and the teachers and the students would be able to make these choices. But in the current system,
I can't see Ibrahim getting a speaking tour of Britain's state schools.
No, God, no. But this was a state school up north, and it was one teacher that loved the IEA and loved what we did and wanted me to come and speak. And unfortunately, that teacher actually ended up resigning as a result of...
Oh, no.
Yeah, he went, I'm not working here anymore.
But there are teachers come up to me and go, I bought your book on taxation, for example, and I make all my kids read it, and it's absolutely brilliant. But
there are some good ones.
Of course there are. But broadly speaking, it is controlled by a certain ideology, and it is the ideology that is paying them.
Yeah, no, it is. It's government money. Fundamentally,
and so and it applies across the education system, across the media.
Yeah. Tell us about Govern Us Harder before we finish.
So, govern.
I think that might be my favourite one of your
A lot
songs.
of people think it's my best one.
Yeah, I think it is.
And it goes really well live.
Okay.
I have to say, because all the musicians have a solo, and I've got really good musicians in the band. And it's like, and my bassist, like you had 8 bars each on the solo because we've got to get them on the comedy, and then my bassist just goes on for about 30 bars with this stop. But I can't claim to have invented the expression "govern me harder." It was an expression that I heard that came about during COVID. And I just thought it was such a funny expression, whoever invented it, "govern me harder." And so I've wrote this kind of love song, if you like, or it's in the style of "Je t'aime" by Serge Gainsbourg.
Is that right? You know what? I've got zero musical ability because you've mentioned all of these songs and the tunes, and I'm like, oh wow, I thought it was an original. You know, I thought it was.
Well, most of it is original, but there's like the middle 8 is when it goes, it's time for a bit of regulation.
Oh, that's fantastic! How does it not get?
Yeah, I want you to. What's the line? I want you to legislate the hell out of me. And all that, and that's all to the music of "Je t'aime," which is
brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
so it's a reference, but yeah, but the lyric is so the opening lyric is "Govern me harder, tell me what to do, give me your welfare, a council tax review."
It's so good.
It's all like super sexy and
oh god,
funny. Yeah.
Well, what a brilliant pre-budget song. I mean, I hope that Rachel Reeves has heard it, and if she hasn't, then my god, she will be. Well, we just email it to her ASAP, don't we?
But she's definitely heard maybe Rachel Reeves's FOS.
Yeah, probably. You would listen to it if you've heard a song about it.
I think so, and they don't like it. Nicola Sturgeon blocked me.
Did she?
Mm.
Oh.
I think she's blocked a few people. What was the song? I did a song about it. I can't even remember what it is now, but
about no. I can visualize the music video.
Maybe Nicola Sturgeon's Burglar Bill, a socialist of the old school with her hands in a till. And then it was something about her being locked up, and but because she'd been calling for trans people to be in women's prisons.
Yes. Well, that's ultimately brought her down.
Yeah. Well, it was calling for her when she gets locked up because there was some financial irregularities as well, and that was satirizing that, and that she was going to get locked up, and that she would end up being locked up with some bird with a penis, and that was the big laugh in the song, and that resulted in hundreds of thousands of views and a blocking by Nicola Sturgeon.
Brilliant. Oh, I've got to say, I mean, we could literally sit here and talk for absolutely hours. I think you are I think you are the best critical satirist of our time. But the fact that you are one of the best and also extremely sound is something that it means that I always feel as though it's a huge pleasure to be.
Well, you're very kind, Reem. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. And thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to all of you for watching and listening. How can we find out about you?
Well, if you want to buy the book, there it is, The Secret History of Gold, and I have 2 newsletters, one for my financial stuff, which is called theflyingfrisbee.com, and you should all subscribe. I've just put a very good video on there, actually, which I'm quite proud of. The 10 largest slaving civilizations in history. That's the next argument I want to get into.
Oh, brilliant.
Do you know who's top?
No, I don't.
The Romans.
Ah.
And none of the European colonial powers make the top 10. Who'd have thought? And so that's theflyingfrisbee.com. And if you're interested in my comedy stuff, that's at frisbees.news. And hopefully they will link.
Yes, we'll pop those links in the YouTube description. Thank you, Dominic, and thank you to all of you for watching and listening. And if you want to learn more about the IEA's work, then do become a subscriber at insider.iea.org.uk.